Welcome back to another Mackem in the Middle podcast. Josh has asked me, I'm Kyle. This is Kyle, by the way. Josh has asked me to cover for him, and I'm joined today with John, and then we're going to be joined by a couple others as they hop on to discuss what an exciting affair the Cardiff City game was. But then overall, just kind of looking at where Sunderland's at this point in the season. We have one more game before the World Cup break, so we got a little bit of interesting kind of items to break down here. But overall, John, how are you doing today? And kind of get us going. What did you think of the our last match against Cardiff City?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Apart from obviously the football, I think we all know it was a poor performance. I think that's a few people were including myself, were probably excited by the team. The team selection. Obviously, in hindsight, it didn't really seem to work, and it was just a shit day from start to finish. Everything from the game to the result to the a few fans, just a few idiots, spoiling it for a few people. And it was just a horrible day and horrible result. And massive frustration.
Right. And I think we'll get to that fan part as well, just because I've been seeing that pop off a little bit on Twitter and I'm a little out of the loop there. But you did mention the lineup. And so it was a nice return to form in some instances, being that Ellis Sims was starting. So we started with the striker there. Bailey Wright was back in again overall. But in terms of the lineup, did you feel like this was probably the most preferred or the best starting 11 that we could have started with?
I'll admit I was probably quite excited by the lineup, with sort of Barr starting and Neil in midfield.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong, we, in hindsight, obviously we know we miss Corey Evans, but I was a little bit surprised that Pritchard was dropped. I probably would have played one or the other. I wouldn't have maybe dropped both. It's a very, very young team. These, again, this is probably a bit of hindsight thinking, but these, when these young players do come on, the games, are very stretched and there's a lot of space to play into, as opposed to, starting and teams being really, really compact. And, I think it's just maybe we expected a little bit much of some of the youngsters. And for me, I think, the Pritchard and Corey Evans, I think one of them has to start. And then obviously you go on to then the manager, at half time. Perfect example is, we're 1-0 up against Stoke City and, he brings on Corey Evans and we just see out a 1-0 win. It's those types of players in the squad that can come on and do a job and just sort of almost, settle us down, not rush in. We don't need to panic. We play good football. So it was, like we said earlier, it was a crap day sort of all round. And, you'd have to include the manager in that.
Right. And we'll definitely get onto that as well. But, as the first half kind of came and went, it was almost, I don't know, it was almost kind of non-eventful in a way. Like I don't remember hardly anything really happening that stood out to me. I felt like at times, the first few minutes, I felt like we played very well. And then, I think a lot of it was, especially with the lineup, Cardiff was coming in and I don't think they'd really scored in a while, or they just were not on a very good run of form. And I think even, Mowbray, mentioned that or in the lead up to this. And so maybe that was kind of the reasoning for, hey, let's give this a shot. Let's, try to throw in some of the young guys. But in the first half, it really didn't shake out. We couldn't get really on the ball, couldn't stay on the ball. We weren't moving it very well. And just like what you mentioned at halftime, I think that's what most people were saying too. Like, oh, well, we can make the adjustments, at the half, let's not wait anything beyond that. Let's, make the adjustments at the half and we should be good. Come out in the second half and within the first 5 minutes, concede a goal. Yeah, and that's Mark Harris scoring for them at the 49th minute. And then I believe that's when the subs came, if I'm getting that timetable right. But yeah, what did you see even start of the second half and as they scored that goal, which was nothing, I would say, extraordinary. Where did you see that we really needed to strengthen, and where do you think Mowbray got it wrong coming out in the second half?
Yeah, I just think the midfield, we've got sort of Dan Neil and Barr, who are very not attacking, but obviously like to play play quite high. Whereas if you watch Corey Evans, he'll very much just sit in, hold it, and sort of maybe just hold that little triangle of him and the centre backs together, and that makes us really hard to play through. We seem to be conceding at really crap times. Just before halftime and just after halftime, and sometimes that's really a real damaging time to concede, because obviously then we've got to be reactionary as opposed to proactive. In them bringing the subs on, and then if that doesn't work, it's a bit like, well, what do we do now? We can go on to later in the game where, eventually we took Sims off without really putting any balls in the box. As soon as we took Sims off and there's no one in the box, we started putting, it was death by crosses. It was, crosses just kept coming in. There's no one in the middle. It just goes back to, it's just a horrible day, and too many players just, off it. I don't think the defence were very good. It feels almost like we're stumbling towards, the international break, which, maybe can't come soon enough for a few players to reset. Yes, we're missing, some really, really good players, and it will be nice to have those players back. But, we should be in a really, really strong position going into this break. I think, and I think it's imperative that we end on a high. Obviously, we'll talk about the Birmingham game, shortly, but I think it's really, really important that we go into that international break definitely with, a good performance and a win, as opposed to, either or. It's very much, Huddersfield wasn't a great performance. We won, and we've played well in games and, not really got our just rewards. I think we do need to find that, that consistency. And then, when the international break comes, it's perfect opportunity. To expect Elise, Ballard, Gooch, Stewart, to come back in then. And then eventually you've got the January transfer window as well. And there's no reason why we can't have a real go, because barring a second half at Burnley, no one's really sort of put us to the sword. I think I wouldn't say as good as Cardiff were, but as organised as they were, I still think we made it very, very easy for them. I don't think we really had a go. So, this league is definitely there for the taking. I'm not saying we're going to be top and we're going to smash everybody. I'm not saying that, but in games, it's been very close, and we've got those quality players who can actually make the difference.
Right. And that's where I feel like this game kind of got away from us a little bit, is we started with those types of players that we would typically bring on. And if I were to guess, and, I have no, facts to back this up, but I felt like Mowbray was thinking, all right, let's get let's change it up a little bit. Let's get an early goal, that's hope, first half goal, probably sub Sims off at some point in the second half. And then we bring in the reinforcements like Corey Evans just to see the game out. But being that we conceded that goal so early into the second half, it really just, I think, threw the whole plan out the window, because you didn't really have all the playmakers to be able to bring on chasing a game versus, getting the ones on there to kind of see the game out. And so it was, it's just really bad timing. The goal too, it wasn't, we've gotten beat by some really, really, really good goals. This one just it just happened. It was really frustrating to watch. And then you could just see it there too in the crowd. I think rightly so, got a little bit anxious as well, which didn't help. But we just didn't quite have the legs to, to see it out and even just get an equalizer there. I don't even remember a lot of very solid opportunities either. This probably sounds bad that I'm not remembering a lot of it, but that was going to kind of bring me to my next point in the season, or just kind of at the season as a whole. We're sitting pretty much just about I think 13th is what it is. Let me pull up. Yep, 13th. So, almost smack dab right in the middle of the table, which I think if you were to ask anyone kind of preseason, would you take at this point in the season, mid-table, I think everybody would have said yes to some extent. But seeing what we saw just in the last couple of games, we're coming off, I think it's one win in about 8 now. What's your concern level overall, with one game heading into the World Cup break? What's kind of your concern level overall? And do you think we still have what it takes to finish, possibly in the playoffs?
Yeah, I definitely think, all those players are due, all of our, say, so-called good players are due to come back. And you'd like to think that, the owners have seen some progress, to think that if we invest, sort of in maybe one or two positions, you'd maybe look at, obviously Huggins coming back, and then you want a centre midfielder. Maybe you could pick up another striker, and maybe add one or two more with a few fringe players going out on loan. There's no reason why you really can't, kick on in the second half of the season. I think if you'd have explained the dynamics of what would happen, up until
Context.
now,
Yeah.
then I think that most people probably would say, yeah, we'd snap your hand off for 13 at this present time. Playing without strikers, obviously we could debate that all day, that we obviously we should have had more, but ultimately we haven't. We didn't obviously bank on the manager going. To be fair, the transition's been fairly, seamless almost, hasn't it? It hasn't really seemed to rock the boat anywhere. So we're probably lucky in that aspect. I think maybe how we are playing and that inconsistency we do have, the World Cup break probably comes at a really, really good time for us, to recharge and to go through a few things, to work on a few things in Dubai or, wherever they're going. And just a bit of a reset for, the youngsters who are, to be fair, playing a lot of football. And again, getting those players back. I'm not too, I wouldn't say worried, but obviously there are concerns of, obviously our home form is not the best. I don't see why we can't, because we play such good attacking football, especially away from home, and we're good at keeping the ball. I don't see why that's a problem at home, because when we're away from home, it's
right.
It's perfectly fine. We're very good at teams. We've been on the end of some, really bad decisions, which have cost us a few results. But at home, for some reason, I don't know why, but we seem to struggle. That's obviously something for Mowbray to look at. And then obviously you've got what you'd call your off-field problems of, there's obviously a few rumours of, Ross Stewart, what's happening with him, what's his contract situation, do the club think in January, do we get rid? There's that little bit of uncertainty, as opposed to can we not just maybe sort them out of contract and get it? I know that's easy to say, and just sort of get that over the line, which would be brilliant. But I wouldn't say I'm massively concerned, but obviously there is one or two bits, and hopefully we're in a right transitional period of when the World Cup comes, where we can dust ourselves down, have a look back, get those players back, because let's be honest, those players make a massive difference. If Ross Stewart's playing, Dan Ballard at the back, Elise is another one, Gooch, has been phenomenal this season. If you add those 4 players into the squad we got now, there's no problem why we can't, I'd say easily get into the playoffs with what we've seen in this league.
Right, and that's kind of, this is really my first season watching like a full season of championship football. I always pay attention to it and whatnot, but you figure by this point in the season, the dust would settle for the most part, and you'd really start to see, okay, these guys are the relegation contenders. These are the playoff type teams. Outside of Huddersfield, who I still even think somehow will figure something out. They sit very bottom, at with 15 points. Wigan right above them with 20, and then West Brom with 20 as well. I mean, we only sit at 24. And so at least having that 2-game buffer is kind of nice, especially if we can get a good, winning result against Birmingham. I think that would make me feel pretty good as well. But I'm pretty, I don't know if it would show the consistency or the overall strength of the championship, or just everybody's not that good as well. I'm having a hard time kind of figuring it out, but the one thing I would say, at this point in the season, we've played most of the top teams. The Burnleys, the Blackburns, even Sheffield, Norwich, all those results. We were, I would say, at a fuller strength, but I mean, we fared really well, and so that's what at least gives me a little bit of confidence. But I think you're right. I mean, we're kind of almost on a little bit of a knife's edge where things could go awry pretty quickly. I think we've seen that before. However, I think you're right. I think once we get these players back and get back to full strength, the Ross Stewart thing, that was going to be the next thing I wanted to touch on. Personally, I've already not written him off in a bad way, but I've already kind of gotten prepared for life without Ross Stewart. I think he's gone. I think as soon as kind of the injury popped up, which I just felt was kind of, maybe it was very serious, but it does feel like he's out for a really long time. I always felt, a little bit of a skeptic in me that it was his agent saying, hey, we have a big payday coming. Why are we going to risk it on the road or, in these horrible conditions? Let's just, sit you out for a little bit, get you nice and healthy and, get your payday going. Do you feel like there's anything to that, or do you think it is just genuinely kind of a normal? I guess you being a fan longer, you've seen these types of contract situations play out. Where do you, if you're on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being that of course we're going to re-sign him, and one being he's as good as gone. Where do you feel Ross Stewart is at as far as staying with Sunderland?
I think at the moment I'm probably on about probably a 4. What we're
Yeah,
seeing from, obviously Mowbray spoke about it last week, in saying, it's sort of an in the background thing. He's not obviously privy to them conversations, but they are happening. And who's he being, advised by? What does he want? Obviously, he's 26, so you're expecting his next contract is going to be, he's going to want a big one. He's an absolutely fantastic player. We've seen that. I think it's, I think like you say, the injury did come at a really, really sort of horrible time for him and for us. But you've got to ask yourself, and he's got to ask himself as well. We look at the Josh Maja situation, and
yep, exactly.
Does he want to play in a place where he's absolutely loved, he's settled, he's scoring goals, he's got a great record? Does he want to grow with us? Oh, can we grow, with him? Obviously the aim yesterday, what the owner said was, the aim is the Premier League. Can he grow with us? I think he can. Does he see that, or does his agent think, well, I've had an offer from, I don't know, let's say Rangers, that that may be the rumour. Does he want to go back to Scotland? Does he, obviously that brings Champions League football, that brings probably a very, very hefty salary. You would think it's all those things you've got to weigh up. Obviously, as fans, we look at it and think, oh, you love it here, and you should commit to here. But obviously,
Right.
players don't think like that. Does he think that he's run his course here, and if he goes on, he'll just, he's sort of done his bit. I think there's just too much in the background for it to be a very, it's very easy to sit and say, oh well, I play Football Manager, and it's a bit like, well, you offer him a contract, he's accepted, that's it. And we know it's never like that. There's a million things have to fall into place. I just think he's one of our best players who, I think there's this skepticism that if he has a big contract, which I think he fully deserves, I don't see anyone else who can walk into the boardroom and say, well, I want the same, because I don't think anyone, barring, you'd probably say maybe Clark and Roberts, but apart, and I'd assume at the moment those two are on fairly decent money with privileges. If we go up, they're probably on percentage bonuses, for their money to go up. So yep. I think he's one of those players who you can, if he turned around and said he wanted, I don't know, we'll say 20 to 25 grand. I think he's the sort of player, even though the budget is the budget, I think that's the sort of thing that you do put your money into. You say, right, here's a 4-year deal. If someone offers 25 million for you, then we'll accept it. That's decent to me. We're going to back you because we want to grow with you. That's the plan. He then obviously commits to us. We're protected as well. If someone comes in and does pay that money, then we can reinvest. With our scouting department shown that we can, yep. Find players. The only thing I would say to that is it is very hard to find a very, very good striker. When we did lose Maja, yeah. We struggled after that. We went through countless strikers. We brought old strikers back, who were supposed to be quality. Just, you talk about your Grahams, your Defoes, Wyke had an amazing season, but it was only for one, so it's very, very hard. And, for what he brings to the team, we've all seen it, at this start of the season, which is why we've almost, really, really struggled since he's gone. So it's a very, very weird one, but obviously a frustrating one as well. And, you just hope that those in the background are just a little bit more proactive with it and maybe back themselves a little bit.
Right. And we've been joined by Daniel, possibly one of the first of two Daniels to maybe join this one. But Daniel, we recapped real quick the Cardiff City game. Not really much to tell there. Just kind of where we're at with the season. We're talking about the Ross Stewart kind of contract now. Daniel, if you were to put, how much would we have to be getting from Ross Stewart, financially to make you okay with the possibility of losing him? Or do you think this is we have to pay whatever it takes to keep him here?
Yeah, I think it's as stupid as it sounds. I don't think you can put a price on a player like Stewart. Maybe you can put a player on Clark or Roberts or Ballard or one of these youngsters that are really going to break into their prime over the next couple of years. Stewart is one of the few strikers I've seen in my time at the club where he is a true number 9 that can do everything. He can get in behind. He can play as a target man. He can play as a deep um, dropping sort of centre forward. He can get up in the air. He can do everything as a striker that you need someone to do. He occupies spaces that allows the wingers to run into, that allows Pritchard or whoever's playing in the midfield to run into and create space up front. And it's something that we have clearly seen be such a miss since August, since he went out. And I know we got Ellis Sims back, but Ellis Sims is nowhere near as impactful or as skillful or as good as Ross Stewart is. Um, I say he's someone we just have to pay whatever it takes to keep him, because when you get in that transfer market in January, who have you got to pull in? What
Right.
striker can be as good as Stewart or as impactful as Stewart into a whole team? Pull the numbers that he does. Let's not forget, in his first month of the championship, he was the leading scorer with the most with the highest conversion rate and probably the most XG as well. And you don't get that from many strikers who have just come from basically the Scottish League as a no one to League One, who was still a no one, made a huge impact in League One, and then can replicate it in the Championship. You don't get many players like that. And when they're available, they are either secured down by big contracts at their clubs, or they price us out of any sort of reasonable deal. So he's kind of irreplaceable at this point. Like, he's only 25 or 26, I think, as well. So it's like we're getting him in his prime. Why would we not do whatever we can to keep him? Because even if he doesn't go on to the Premier League to be like as good as he was in the Championship, look at someone like Ivan Toney, who did it in the Championship over 2 different clubs, and then is now
Yep.
doing it in the Premier League. So same build, same style of play. Ross Stewart can do it there, but he'd also be a great backup to have, especially for cup
Yep.
games. And when our main number 9 in the Premier League does get injured or whatever. So it's like if we are aiming that high and we get to keep Stewart for the next couple of years, and if we do go up, like he'd be a great number 9 or a great number 2, like second striker, should I say? So it'd be absolutely stupid not to pay whatever we need to just to keep him tied down.
Right. And I can see, I know Mowbray came out with the comments about, the just player wages, and that has got to be a difficult thing to manage as a manager. And I think with where, the system is around the club now, and where Speakman is, I can just see, if someone comes along, and I've only seen these types of figures, mentioned, so I have no idea, how it really compares. But if someone were to come in and offer anywhere between, let's say, 15 to 20 million, which you guys can tell me if that's unrealistic for, for someone like Ross Stewart. I mean, I feel like that could be, really useful as far as where we're at as a club, kind of gaining that sustainability. I mean, anything over, 8 to even 10 million. I mean, that can sign up a handful of really solid championship players. But we are in the system where we're looking for young talent and things like that, and I think money does become a factor. But it's going to be interesting to see. And I think even if we had one more striking option, I think I'd be more okay with settling for the finances and saying, hey, if we can get really a truly good amount of money for Ross Stewart, I'd be okay with him leaving. But being that all we have is Ellis Sims at the moment, I feel like that puts us in, a more difficult spot if we can find even like an in between where we can. I don't know. The contract situations are just, especially in this league, I think are just very, very difficult to to kind of understand or figure out who, what's going to be the best route to go. But I agree. I think we definitely got to find a way to keep them. But nonetheless, yeah. I mean, yeah. What are you guys seeing out there? Yeah, Daniel, you can go ahead again. What else are you seeing out there in terms of wages or what we could get for them or?
Well, the thing is, whatever Tony Mowbray says, he can't really affect. He's a head coach and not a manager, so he doesn't have any right to overplay with signing, etc. He can only make comments that sort of what he thinks rather than what he can do. The only benefit I could see to selling him is to take like a sort of Napoli approach, where this summer Napoli lost 3 or 4 of their biggest players. Obviously, they lost Koulibaly, they lost Fabian Ruiz, they lost Milik, who was a big striker for them as well. And they got, I think, about 60 million for those 3 players combined. And what they've done is, with their sort of signings that they brought in, they spent less than 60 million, so they made a profit. But they brought in about 4 or 5 or 6 different players that added quality to their team, and really strengthened across the whole team rather than just trying to do a like for like replacement with big money. I mean, they've gone unbeaten this year. One of the few teams in the world that have gone unbeaten with I think they're on like 11 wins and 2 draws and no losses. So it's like, if we actually do something like that, then yes, I would want like maybe 15 million for someone like Ross Stewart, if we reinvest it that way. But like you said, because we don't have the squad depth and all we have is Ellis Sims as a backup, and then we got Diaku, who is not a fan favourite at the moment, and sort of Jack Clark, who's definitely better out wide. It's like, can you really afford to make that gamble of strengthening every other area, and then being left with no funds to bring in 2 more strikers or however many we'll need?
Right, and I think timing too, and John, maybe you can help me with this, but we're heading in obviously to the World Cup break. Is that going to lead almost directly into like the January transfer window? Like, is that when we're going to be resuming? Is almost at that point, or is there going to be a gap between the end of this, about a month?
Yeah, December 18th is when the World Cup ends, and then you've got a couple of weeks before January window.
Yeah, and so timing of it all. But yeah, John, I mean, if you were to see Ross Stewart go and having this sort of money, do you feel like it almost would have been better to happen during the summer versus a January transfer window? Or do you think at this point it doesn't really make a difference as long as we're making a good amount of money from this? Assuming that it all goes the way we're assuming, of course.
I definitely think if it is going to happen, I think it's a better thing to happen in the summer. He's definitely a player who can. I think if you're talking about really good money, I think if he carries on playing till the summer, and say he gets 20 to 25 goals, which I think is easily doable for him, then I think that's when Premier League teams, sort of lower end ones, will, your Brentfords and those sort of teams and Fulhams and Southampton will start to look at him and think, because to them 20 million is, a drop in the ocean now. You look at like Nottingham Forest spending sort of 40 million on, Gibbs White and those types of players, and they haven't really done anything. You're sort of almost looking down, and if someone's flying, and we know the hardest job in football is putting the ball in the back of the net, the teams will notice that and will come calling for him. Obviously, ultimately, I don't think any of us want to lose him. I think the model is to, if these players do go on to bigger, better things, then you have to say thank you very much, and you have to squeeze, every single bit of money, that you can. And obviously, like Dan says, those plans, if this is what we're seeing, unfolding with Ross Stewart, those plans already need to be in place of, right, who do we go for? Can they fit the system? Can they, because obviously we didn't, in the summer, the plan obviously to get Broadhead obviously it didn't happen, but then there wasn't really, a real fallback option, because we desperately did need a third striker. You'd like to think if things are going badly in the background with Ross Stewart, you'd like to think right now those plans are ready in place and those players are being sounded out. Obviously, this never happens, so that on January the 1st, you could turn around and say, well, we've got our targets and we are ready to go. We've done our due diligence, as opposed to a long drawn out process, and we're just stumbling through games. And, Ellis Sims is still really, really young, obviously struggled with injury. He's not going to be able to do it on his own. And it's a shame because it's almost getting in the way of a really good season for us, with the Ross Stewart thing. And that's what I mean. The people behind need to be a little bit more ruthless, with this, and we need to work out either way where we go. And are we going to back him? Because the club must know if they're going to really go for it financially and back him, or if they're thinking, no way, we're miles apart. If we're miles apart, then obviously it's not going to happen. We need those definitive answers sort of, soon.
Yep. And I think the issue with obviously waiting until the summer is that, his contract is up June 30th, so I think the biggest thing from this is just what I'm taking away is, we just have to make sure we get something. We get something and really, it's, we were the ones who kind of found him in a way, right? He was just in Ross County, and I think according to some of the sites I'm on, I mean he's being paid just so little comparatively to some of these other players. And yeah, I think as long as we can manage a way to find a way to amend the contract, extend it, understand that he might be off to bigger, better things, but as long as we just don't get left with nothing, I feel like fans would have to find some solace in that. It would be unfortunate, of course, but I think him leaving on a free at the end of the summer would be, I think, worst case scenario.
There is obviously he's got a 12-month I think extension to activate, so we're just about covered,
Okay.
So it's still a decision.
Yeah, we would have to activate the 1-year extension and sell him in the summer. We can't sell him in January because he'll have 6 months. Could sign a pre-contract for the end of summer. So,
okay, I get it. Yep.
I was just thinking as well. Money obviously is one thing, but we really have to be sort of diligent in who we sell to at this stage as well, because what we don't want to do is strengthen up our competition.
True.
Even if they pay the big prices, so it's having that due diligence that we've been offered a big sum of money, but is it to the right club? Because you got to think in that. As stupid as this might sound, but you've got to think in that player's best interest as well. Just because, I don't know, someone like Stoke, for example, someone like Stoke come in and offer 30 million. I know that's not going to happen, but they offer 30 million for Ross Stewart. Is that in Ross Stewart's best interest? Or is that just, we'll take 30 million because they're stupid, but then that's a team that's around us as well. So it's like you need to be diligent on who to sell to, and money isn't everything in this. I mean, you look at the squad. Ross Stewart is one of the favourites in the squad. He's got good chemistry with the squad. That's another thing that's hard to replace. If you've got a good system at the club where you've got a striker that's on the same wavelength of his midfielders and his attackers, wingers by the side of him, like that chemistry between everyone, the chemistry off the pitch, it can be a big impact. And for a new striker to come in, that's a hard thing to replicate if they want to make it want to be as successful.
Yep, we've seen it happen plenty of times where it just doesn't work. So, well, that's good. And that was kind of our Ross Stewart talk. So, I guess the last thing we'll talk about, because I know, John, you got to hop off here soon. Birmingham, it's the last game before the World Cup break. They're just 2 spots ahead of us. We're 13th, they're 11th. Basically, the difference was they won their last game and we lost our last game. So for Birmingham, John, we'll start with you. What are you kind of hoping to see differently than how things turned out with Cardiff City? And then what would that mean heading into the World Cup break if we can get away with 3 points from Birmingham?
I think away from home it probably suits us a bit better. There's that almost that monkey on the back a little bit of the home form. So away from home, I don't really see it see it as much. There has to be obviously a bit of a reaction. You'd hope Ellis Sims has got a nice, sort of calm week of training in him, so he's, he could probably last 90 minutes. I think maybe we've learned some lessons, maybe sort of Mowbray from last weekend. And I think at the moment, normally it's all about the 3 points, but I think sometimes we're looking for a little bit more. And I'm looking, I'm definitely looking I'm actually going as well, taking my little lad.
Nice.
So I'm definitely looking for, a full performance and a result. I know that's probably, being greedy, but I think we do need that. And heading into the World Cup, I think that puts us on a bit of a high. And then, like you say, we've got then whatever it is, I think till December 3rd when we play Millwall. For a nice break to refresh, recharge, especially a lot of youngsters get the squad back. And I think, as bad as the Middlesbrough game was, when obviously Ross Stewart, went off injured and didn't play, and went down in the warm up, and the whole team lost that confidence that day. I think then you'll see if he's fit and he's ready to go against Millwall. I think you'll then see that, that rising of, the puff and the chest out, and that rise and that growth, in the team, as opposed to what we saw when he got injured. I think he does bring that. And then, like we said earlier, second half of the season, I don't see any reason why, barring any, Sunderland-esque problems of where we shoot ourselves in the foot in any way, but, just having a really good finish to the season. Because if, I know you can't say, all the time, but if everyone had stayed fit, I think we're definitely, in contention for, the minimum, the playoffs. If you found that consistency of putting back-to-back wins together, I think that's what then maybe pushes you into the automatics. But we're still looking for that. But if we can find that, there's no reason why we can't, stake a claim up there.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thank you, John. And Daniel, kind of same question to you with this last, how important do you think this Birmingham game is? What changes would you make to maybe the starting lineup, if any? And then what would, overall, what's your assessment of kind of this halfway point of the season? How do you think we fared so far?
Yeah, I think it's a massive game. You want to go into the World Cup break on a win. You want to go in with a positive feeling that when we get the players back from injury, Ballard, Alessi, Gooch, Stewart, etc., that we can hit the ground running come end of December, really. So it's a game we need to get 3 points from, especially after that shocking performance at Cardiff. Also, something I'd want to see is maybe Barr and Daniel not play together. They can't work together. They don't work together. Two young players that have sort of very similar traits. Just it doesn't work when you're trying to have an anchor in your midfield as a number 6. So I'd like to see Corey Evans come back in for one of them. I don't mind which. Both of them I rate highly. So whichever one gets dropped, I wouldn't be too fussed. As long as Corey Evans is there to anchor, he plays a role that people like sort of underappreciate now. Because he's just been so consistently good.
Oh yeah.
It's like feels like people are starting to like slip on what he actually brings to the team again, because he goes unnoticed. So he needs to come back in.
Right. He's kind of like just the solid anchor. We have these like shiny new toys, so to speak, and he's kind of the one who's just a little bit more beaten down. He's been there, done that, but you just notice his presence when he's missing. And in terms of Ba and Neil, I think it is nice at least to be at this point of the season where Mowbray had the ability to at least try that. Right. We're not sitting in a relegation scrap quite yet. We're not, sitting at the top either, but it is nice that we are at least at this point of the season where he can say, hey, let's just give this a shot. Let's see how this pairing works, because you never know. Obviously, now we know it did not work. That should help us for the future. I guess we're still trying to figure out that best starting 11. The injuries haven't quite helped. Do we have anyone out? I believe somebody hit yellow card accumulation last game, and it was at Luke 09 possibly. But I do think we'll be missing. I thought we're going to be missing one, but I could be wrong.
I I don't remember hearing anything about that. I mean,
Either way.
if we did, that's not great.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, like you were saying, with being in a position where we could try this thing. I mean, you could see by the squad that was put out last week, he tried to trust as many young players as he could in one squad, really. Um, and it shows that they're not quite at the stage where they can take things by storm, which is why experience is so critical, because they're going to be those hard players that just take no shit. Um, but at the same time, it's like at least they're getting that opportunity to learn and develop in a proper game rather than being shoved into an under 21s game, um, which is a completely different level of football, in terms of quality, in terms of pace, etc. So I know people will look at the under 21 results and see that we got a load of first teamers in there and we lose or whatever. Under 21 football is completely different to adult
right.
football. I know that for a fact because I played in it. It's a completely different pace, different quality, different, like the intensity is so much higher than professional football, professional adult football, should I say. So it's great for them to get into a slower game. Obviously, it seemed to be a bit too slow, and they couldn't get a grasp of it. But yeah, we at least we found out what the players are. Daniel and Bar two seem to be like two number eights, two box to box players, and you sort of need a number six in there to just counter everything. But yeah, it'd be if we lose one of those players, it might be Luke O'Nien, like you said. It'd be a great chance for Niall Huggins to come in and just see what he can
True.
do on the last day of the first third of the season. Just give him a chance after injury. He's played a couple of under 21 games now. He should be fit to just get in for even half the game. Give Trey Hume the other half, something like that. Just I don't know. I'd like to see a bit of experiment, just something a bit different.
Right.
Maybe a different formation. You know what? It's the last game of the third. We're in a good place. I mean, I would have bitten your hand off for 21st at this stage of the season. That's all I care about, just staying in this league. So I'd like to see some like experience in there, obviously, with Corey Evans. Maybe drop Bailey Wright because he's got a World Cup, so I don't think he'd want to be risky.
Did he officially get the call up? Because I saw that they were
Yes.
there. He did.
Yeah, Bailey Wright got the call up, so I feel like Jewison Bennett and Bailey Wright, they might be dropped so that they can go to the Cup and not be risked. So whatever else we have, just try it. Try a different formation. Try a 5-back. Try a 3-back. Try a 1 at the back and 11, 10, 9 up front. Whatever, just something a bit different. Give us something to that excites us and doesn't put us through the drury of Cardiff, because that was a hard watch. That really was a hard watch. So I'm not fussed what the starting 11 is. I just want to see a bit of change, a bit of excitement, and just the boys put in a performance where they die for the badge, wear the heart on them, really. And send the World Cup happy with 3 points.
True. Yeah, because playing away from home I think might help a little bit. John had mentioned that there's some weird fan. I've noticed some not fan interaction, but some people popping off on Twitter. It's a little hard for me to follow, but some people aren't happy with some of our fans or some of the younger fans, it seems. So I think taking a month off from that. Do you have any more info on that? Like, do you know what's been going on or?
Well, I mean, it's like any teenager, really. The way football's sort of changing, it's you get a lot of younger people coming to watch, like
which is good, right?
Yeah, good to watch, but like you get people like the ages of 8 to like 15, 16, probably maybe pushing 17, 18. On against Cardiff, they were the ones that were throwing the coins and paper onto the pitch and stuff. So as people were saying, as much as the people up in the gods, the away fans have been throwing stuff down, we're equally as bad to blame, because we got people, all these young fans in the Roker end, just throwing stuff and causing chaos. And then obviously they were the ones that were fighting at the end, like outside of the stadium, chasing all the Cardiff fans. I think I read they knocked 4 Cardiff fans out and just steamrolled them, basically. So
Oh my
It's,
god.
yeah,
It's
I
not
mean,
funny. I probably shouldn't be laughing, but it's just it's
no,
like
I
what?
mean,
Yeah.
this stuff happened in the 80s, it happened in the 90s, it happened in the 2000s. I mean, it's a thing that's followed football all the way back. It seems to
Right.
be sort of coming back slightly more. So it's like that's what's from what I gather, that's what's been going on. And that's what they're unhappy with. But it's, I mean, it's football. There are, you do get dickheads, and just the people, the younger ones are just seeming to be a bit more, like a bit too much, like
Yeah.
the
And
points and stuff, like hooliganism. I mean, hooliganism back in the day was like, I don't know,
it's like
fist fight.
organized, right? It was
Yeah,
like it was like
you'll get the Millwall casuals and like the Seaburn casuals, all and organize a place in the time, and they just batter each other and then go to the match and enjoy it. And it's like it'd be like sort of warfare. You get groups of people that organize fights, and then they have fist fights, and they don't really use knives, coins, and whatnot. But it's just at the end of the day, it's just happened throughout the last couple of decades. So
yep.
I don't
Well,
know, but
yeah.
I mean, it probably doesn't help. You got the kids, the family zone right next to the Roker end, so that's
Yeah. And I know that I was talking about, and that'll probably be discussion for another pod, but I know I think Red and White Army just took their notes from the latest meeting, and I think some of that's been discussed. So I think overall, I think this break between, I mean, we now won't have another home game for quite a while. I think that'll probably be good. Let some dust settle a little bit. And we move on from there. But I think that's probably where we'll call it today. So, Daniel, I appreciate you hopping on, even if I was a little bit late. Birmingham Friday, I think, is a pretty big match. I'm not sure if Josh will have anything else to, preview that game or anything. And then, hopefully continue into the World Cup, because USA England, I'm sure we can get some some pretty good some discussions out of that. So
I'm back in a live reaction, a live watch through.
that
Uh,
I'd be pretty down with that. I'm excited. This World Cup, it's for all the the stigma and just kind of the as much as I wish I could have the guts to boycott something like this for a number of reasons. It's just I haven't watched the USA play in a meaningful international match in quite some time, so I'm excited for it. And I think yeah.
I don't have too many qualms with Qatar. They offered me a job for the World Cup, so I can't really. Can't really
So you've been bought out. All right, I see how it is. Yeah.
No, yeah, Qatar. I mean, it's for the people. I know a lot of people that have gone to work for the World Cup, coming from the Commonwealth Games, and I know the people that are there are some of the best people in the world. Some of the kindest and most organized people in the world. So, despite
Right.
all the problems that are going on potentially with the regime in
Right.
Qatar, all the human rights, etc., the actual people that are putting on the World Cup, I know from
Right.
personal sort of experience over the last year with working with most of them, that they are some of the greatest people in the world, and they do not deserve to have a games ruined because of political reasons. They have put hard work into this, and that you will see that their work will be phenomenal. It will be great games.
Yep.
And I wish everyone that's gone there the best, because it must have been a tough decision to make, knowing all the backlash you might get. So that's all I'll say on it.
I think what is it? Don't hate the players, hate the game, right?
Yeah.
I mean that's kind of what it is, and it'll be fun to watch some of our lads out there as well, and representing their country and also us,
When
So
Lewis and Bennett score
oh.
a quarterfinal winner against Brazil, I'll be screaming. So
I love it. Well, Daniel, thanks again, and John had to drop off, so thanks to John as well, and appreciate you guys for listening. I'm sure Josh will be back when he figures out, like I said, this hit and run. He's fine, he's not injured, but his car is a little dinged up, so that you hate seeing that. So this is your reminder too. If you haven't bought a dash cam yet, they're pretty affordable now, and let me tell you, it's going to save you a a lot of headache when this is happening. But this has been another episode of Mackem in the Middle, and we will see you all next time.
That's all, folks.